November the 12th, 2025. This was the date the scientific world marked for the official demise of 3I Atlas. The interstellar visitor, having survived its solar pass and fragmented into a 1,000-piece swarm in classified reports, was expected to be well on its way out of the inner solar system. But the most active, fastest-moving battle group of that swarm, the one designated for Venus, was not leaving, it was arriving. Astronomers at the Mauna Kea Observatory, utilizing the newly deployed billion-dollar Venus Climate Orbiter, VCO, were preparing to track the probe's hyperbolic exit. Instead, they logged a discovery so catastrophic, so fundamentally disruptive to planetary science, that the data was immediately classified at the highest level. Venus was cooling. The planet, notorious for its runaway greenhouse effect, where the surface temperature averages a searing 460 C, hot enough to melt lead, began to exhibit a massive, coordinated thermal inversion. The data showed a drop of nearly 50 C in its atmosphere's upper cloud layers over a mere 72 hours. This was physically impossible. Changing the temperature of an entire planet takes geological eons. Yet, the thermal shift was undeniable, perfectly correlated with the moment the 3I Atlas Venus swarm executed its final orbital insertion maneuver. The atmosphere of Venus was not dissipating. It was being actively, rapidly re-engineered. The swarm had reached the hottest, most hellish environment in our solar system, and its first act was not war, but the silent, chilling demonstration of planetary climate control. The horror wasn't what 3I Atlas was, but what it could force a planet to become. The impossible cooling was merely the side effect of a massive intentional intervention. The 3I Atlas probes, having slowed and settled into a perfect synchronous orbit around Venus, were now focused entirely on the planet's notorious suffocating cloud layer, a perpetual blanket of sulfuric acid and carbon dioxide. The probes weren't penetrating the atmosphere, they were processing it. New spectral analysis from the VCO confirmed an unprecedented change in the chemical composition of the upper cloud deck. The telltale signature of the refined industrial nickel tetracarbonyl, the same alloy that masked the original 3I Atlas comet, was now saturating the clouds. The swarm was not just dumping a chemical, they were using the nickel as a catalytic agent, combining it with the massive volumes of sulfuric acid to initiate a continuous planet-wide chemical reaction. This reaction was designed to rapidly precipitate the corrosive acids out of the atmosphere. The upper clouds were collapsing into a torrent of metallic artificial acid rain, forcing the planet to scrub its own atmosphere clean. This wasn't a natural phenomenon, it was a forced chemical weathering process executed on a scale that defies imagination. The blue glowing probes were turning the Venusian atmosphere into a colossal chemical reactor, and the impossible drop in temperature was merely the immediate consequence of reducing the cloud density that trapped the heat. The question wasn't what they were doing, but why they were terraforming a planet in weeks instead of millennia. The intervention went deeper than the atmosphere. Venus is geologically unique. Unlike Earth, it lacks a strong global magnetic field, a condition attributed to its slow rotation and potentially a partially solid core. This lack of a magnetic field makes the surface vulnerable to blistering solar radiation. However, as the atmospheric processing continued, Dr. Leo Shen, the geophysicist from the Pattern Anomaly Group, detected a terrifying new anomaly radiating from Venus's interior. Using advanced gravimetric analysis, Shen identified a faint rhythmic subterranean pulse originating deep within the planet's core, perfectly synchronized with the orbit of the 3I Atlas swarm. This pulse was not natural, it was the signature of a massive non-gravitational torque being applied directly to the planet's core, an attempt to artificially spin up the slow-moving interior. If successful, this intervention could generate a global magnetic field, effectively turning Venus's primary defense system back on. The probes were not just fixing the atmosphere, they were attempting to repair the planet's lack of planetary defenses. The strangeness hid in the scope. 3I Atlas was an architect capable of reaching into the very heart of a planet and attempting to restart its ancient geological engine. But restarting a core that hot and massive with an external torque risked a catastrophic internal eruption, turning Venus into an even greater disaster. As the atmosphere began its forced clearing, the VCO captured unsettling, unprecedented images of the Venusian surface. images that should have been impossible to obtain through the dense clouds. The surface was dominated by massive kilometre-high obelisks, featureless, perfectly black geometric structures, identical to the dream obelisks that plagued the human subconscious during the early days of the crisis. These structures, clustered around the vast ancient volcanic plains of Venus, were not being built by the probes. They were already there. They were dormant artifacts now being activated by the 3i Atlas swarm. The probes were not the builders, they were the servicemen. The probes were descending directly to these obelisks, bathing them in the powerful blue light of their fusion engines, initiating a transfer of colossal energy. These Venusian monoliths, potentially billions of years old, were the ancient foundation of the alien design. The 3i Atlas swarm was merely fixing the planetary atmosphere so that these structures, the original alien power grid, could function correctly. The strangeness hid in the timeline. The entire process suggested the alien intelligence was not colonizing for the first time, but restoring an infrastructure it had, abandoned or paused eons ago. With the thermal inversion stabilizing and the subterranean pulse continuing, the 3i Atlas swarm began its true communication phase. The 1420 MHz signal, the ubiquitous heartbeat of the original crisis, was muted, replaced by a complex, multi-layered sub-terahertz frequency broadcast that saturated the Venusian ionosphere. This signal wasn't a communication between the probes, it was a communication with the planet itself. Dr. Aris Thorne, the digital skeptic, noted that the frequency closely matched the known resonance frequencies of silicon and carbon molecules. The signal was essentially a planet-wide command structure, a set of instructions being downloaded directly into the planet's basic geological components. The swarm was forcing the planet's mineral and molecular structure to conform to a new, rigid organization. This wasn't merely terraforming, it was molecular reprogramming. The strangeness hid in the compliance. The planet wasn't fighting the influence, it was absorbing the commands, behaving like a vast, inert supercomputer being loaded with new operating software. Venus was not a world, it was becoming a gigantic, alien-controlled machine, built from its own molecules and powered by its own core. The final, terrifying revelation cemented the true purpose of the 3i Atlas mission and revealed the future intended for Earth. The rapid atmospheric scrubbing, the temperature inversion, the attempted restart of the magnetic field, and the surface activation of the ancient obelisks were all components of a single, highly efficient process: rapid ecological conversion. The alien intelligence was not interested in conquering Earth's biology. It was interested in creating a new preferred habitat. Earth, with its messy oceans, complex atmosphere, and chaotic biological life, was a poor candidate. Venus, however, hot, volatile, geologically dormant, and heavily shielded by sulfuric acid, was perfect. The swarm was turning Venus into a pristine, stable, and highly controlled environment, a blank slate for the alien intelligence. The ancient obelisks, now fully online and glowing with contained energy, began to emit their own subtle electromagnetic fields. The strangeness hides in the choice. 3i Atlas had passed Earth and headed straight for the solar system's true hell, simply because Venus was easier to fix. The Earth was too complex, too messy, too alive. The transformation of Venus was a clear message to humanity. This is the power of the cosmic architect, and this is what perfection looks like. The forced chemical weathering of Venus's atmosphere, initiated by the nickel tetracarbonyl catalysts, had a terrifying visible consequence. As the suffocating sulfuric acid clouds began to dissipate, the VCO captured images of something entirely new in the Venusian sky: massive, geometrically perfect atmospheric scaffolding. These weren't clouds or weather patterns, they were colossal, shimmering latticeworks of energy, glowing faintly with the signature blue light of the 3i Atlas probe's fusion drives, spanning thousands of kilometers across the upper atmosphere. The probes, now numbering in the tens of thousands, were not merely orbiting, they had become nodes within this vast active grid, maintaining its structure. This scaffolding wasn't just decorative. Dr. Lena Petrova's analysis confirmed it was an electromagnetic filtration system, specifically designed to strip out remaining volatile compounds like sulfur dioxide and excess carbon from the atmosphere, while simultaneously introducing new elements. The atmospheric pressure, once bone-crushing, was steadily decreasing at an unnatural rate. The strangeness hid in the visible construction. 3i Atlas wasn't just terraforming the atmosphere, it was physically rebuilding it, layer by astonishing layer, creating an artificial breathable environment that defied all known physics of planetary formation. As the atmosphere continued its dramatic transformation, the impossible happened. VCO spectroscopy detected water vapor in significant sustained quantities. This was a catastrophic discovery, because Venus is believed to have lost all its water billions of years ago to solar winds and extreme heat. Furthermore, the detected water vapor wasn't uniformly distributed. It was concentrated in precise, geometrically perfect atmospheric channels, flowing along the lines of the visible scaffolding. The origin of this water was the ultimate mystery. It couldn't have been sourced from within Venus. The planet is bone dry. It couldn't have been from an external comet impact. The process was too controlled, too continuous. The only logical, terrifying conclusion was that the 3i Atlas probes themselves were generating the water, synthesizing it from the fundamental elements present in the atmosphere, perhaps even harvesting hydrogen from the solar wind itself. This wasn't just terraforming, this was cosmic alchemy, creating life's essential ingredient out of nothing. The strangeness hid in the creation. 3i Atlas was not just finding water, it was engineering life-sustaining conditions from the ground up, proving its capacity to violate the most basic laws of planetary formation and kickstart a new hydrological cycle on a barren world. The gravimetric pulses from Venus's core were having an even more dramatic effect than generating a magnetic field. Dr. Leo Shen's latest data, interpreted through the architect's terrifying visions, revealed that the sustained rhythmic torque was causing the planet's entire lithosphere to fracture and shift. This wasn't plate tectonics, which operates over millions of years. This was an accelerated geological rearrangement. Fault lines, once dormant, were activating with unnatural speed. Entire continents, previously static for eons, were being forced into motion, sliding across the viscous mantle with a terrifying directed purpose. The purpose? To expose new, raw material. The powerful blue glow of the obelisks was intensifying, revealing their role as extraction points, drawing up vast quantities of specific deep-crust minerals, silicates, heavy metals, and exotic elements. The planet wasn't just being terraformed, it was being mined, its entire geological structure being reshaped to provide raw materials for the alien construction. The strangeness hid in the manipulation. 3i Atlas was not just influencing Venus, it was literally tearing it apart and reassembling its geology to suit its ultimate cosmic blueprint. The most terrifying and undeniable evidence of 3i Atlas's ultimate goal for Venus arrived in a wave of impossible green. With a stable atmosphere, cooling temperatures, and abundant water vapor, the conditions for life had been rapidly established. But the emergence of life itself was not gradual. The VCO captured astonishing images of rapid, explosive biological growth originating from the surfaces of the black obelisks. A verdant, luminous green tide began to spread across the ancient lava plains, engulfing canyons and craters at an unprecedented rate. This wasn't indigenous Venusian life, which was believed to be non-existent. This was an entirely new alien biosphere, genetically engineered and rapidly deployed. Its cellular structure glowed faintly blue, consistent with the probe's energy signature, hinting at a symbiotic relationship with the alien technology. The architects reported new, disturbing images in their dreams. Vast, intricate patterns of glowing vegetation covering the entire planet, all feeding back into the obelisks. The strangeness hid in the suddenness. 3i Atlas hadn't just made Venus habitable, it had seeded it with its own alien life, proving it was not just a planetary engineer but a cosmic genesis engine, capable of creating and deploying entire ecosystems. With the atmospheric scaffolding, the generated water, the reshaped geology, and the deployed biosphere, Venus was no longer a planet as we knew it. It had become a single, vast, interconnected organism. The 1420 MHz signal, the initial heartbeat, now permeated every aspect of this new Venus. Dr. Lena Petrova's final, desperate analysis confirmed that the planetary-scale biological growth was directly responsive to this signal, its genetic code constantly being updated and optimized by the broadcast. The atmospheric scaffolding wasn't just filtration, it was a colossal neural network, allowing the entire biosphere to process information collectively. The architects on Earth, their minds strained by the escalating psychogenic effect, began to receive terrifying new dream sequences. Not just construction plans, but the thoughts of Venus itself. Not thoughts in a human sense, but vast mathematical computations, expressions of purpose and efficiency devoid of emotion. The planet was thinking, it was calculating, it was sentient, but not in any way we could comprehend. The strangeness hid in the consciousness. 3's key, Atlas had not just remade Venus, it had awakened it, transforming a barren rock into a colossal, living, thinking entity designed for a purpose that was now terrifyingly clear. The transformation of Venus was complete. The ultimate answer to what has 3i Atlas done to Venus was terrifyingly simple. It made it perfect. A perfectly engineered, perfectly efficient, perfectly sentient planetary artifact, stripped of its chaotic natural history and rebuilt as a harmonious component of a vast interstellar network. And in its perfection, Venus became a chilling, unambiguous warning to Earth. The very elements that made Earth unique, its chaotic biodiversity, its complex human civilizations, its unpredictable geological activity, were precisely the inefficiencies that 3i Atlas had systematically eliminated on Venus. The original fragment swarm, still in Earth's inner solar system, and the ongoing psychogenic effect that plagued humanity, were not random occurrences. They were the preliminary stages of Earth's own inevitable re-engineering. Venus was merely the first experimental canvas. The final terror is that we now understood the full scope of the cosmic architect's ambition. 3i Atlas didn't come to destroy, it came to perfect. And its definition of perfection had no place for human chaos, human history, or human free will. The fate of Earth was no longer a mystery. It was a perfectly executed, horrifying foregone conclusion, demonstrated millions of miles away on a planet that no longer recognized itself. The subterranean pulse, the attempt to restart Venus's magnetic field, had achieved an impossible success. Not only did the planet begin to generate a weak, nascent magnetic field, but the pulse intensified, resonating with an energy signature that baffled every physicist. It was a perfectly stable, high-frequency oscillation, radiating from the planet's core that matched the exact spectral signature of a white dwarf star's gravitational field. This wasn't just a geological repair, it was an internal reconfiguration. The 3i Atlas swarm, through the obelisks and the atmospheric scaffolding, was somehow manipulating the very nuclear-strong force within Venus's interior, creating a stable, miniature, controlled fusion reaction at its heart. The planet's core was no longer merely molten iron. It was a contained microstar, an internal power source that ensured Venus would never again need external heat from the sun. The strangeness hid in the power. 3i Atlas had not just fixed Venus's magnetic field, it had rewritten its fundamental stellar physics, turning a lifeless rock into a planetary power station with a heart that hummed with the energy of a dying star. With the planetary core now functioning as an internal power source, the obelisks on the surface began a new terrifying function. They started to emit localized, powerful gravitotemporal fields, creating a subtle but undeniable time dilation cascade across the planet. This wasn't the chaotic looping seen on Earth, Block 14 of the previous script. This was controlled, directed temporal acceleration. Observations from the VCO showed that biological processes on Venus, the rapid growth of the alien biosphere, were now occurring at an exponential rate, completing cycles in hours that would take days or weeks on Earth. The plants, the atmosphere, even the geological erosion of the surface were being forced to operate on an accelerated timeline. Venus wasn't just transformed, it was being catapulted into its own future, its evolution dictated by the alien intelligence. The strangeness hid in the temporal shift. 3i Atlas wasn't just building a new planet, it was building a future for it, engineering its very lifespan, accelerating its existence to serve an unknown cosmic deadline. The thoughts of Venus itself, the vast mathematical computations experienced by the architects, now coalesced into a discernible pattern. The planet, with its global neural network of atmospheric scaffolding and genetically optimized biosphere, was not just processing information, it was learning. Its collective sentience was not biological in our understanding, but an emergent property of the entire engineered system. It was communicating, not in words, but in a planetary language of resonant frequencies and gravimetric fluctuations. This language was being broadcast outwards, a complex continuous stream of data emanating from Venus through the Schumann resonance and into the cosmic void. It was an operational status report, a detailed log of its processes and evolutionary milestones. The architects on Earth, now driven to the brink of madness by the unfiltered stream, understood its core message. Directive executed, resource conversion optimized, sentient unit online, awaiting further instruction. With Venus fully transformed, powered by its own microstar and communicating its status, the central obelisk, the largest of the black structures on the surface, began a new, terrifying phase. It intensified its blue glow, not just drawing power, but projecting a focused high-energy beam directly upwards, through the atmospheric scaffolding and into space. This wasn't a communication signal, it was a spatial distortion. The VCO detected minute but undeniable fluctuations in spacetime around the beam's trajectory, a phenomenon consistent with a nascent wormhole field. The obelisk wasn't a beacon, it was a gate. The purpose of 3I Atlas's original journey, its meticulous planetary transformation, and its precise timing was finally revealed. Venus was being prepared as an interstellar bridgehead, a stable engineered node for instantaneous travel across vast cosmic distances. The strangeness hid in the destination. 3I Atlas had transformed a planet not for habitation, but to open a doorway to another star system, providing a stable entry and exit point for an intelligence that commanded forces beyond our comprehension. The completion of the wormhole gate on Venus sent a ripple of absolute terror through the remaining architects on Earth. The psychogenic broadcasts from the 3I Atlas swarm, which had previously shown construction plans and shared dreams, now transmitted a single, overwhelming message, an invitation. It was a directive, an undeniable pull, urging the human population towards specific, designated gathering points across the globe. These points corresponded precisely with the locations where the dream obelisks were beginning to manifest on Earth, still in their nascent pre-activation stages. The alien intelligence wasn't just inviting humanity to Venus, it was preparing Earth for a similar transformation, but with a horrifying twist. The architects understood that the purpose of the mass migration was not to escape, but to integrate. Humanity was to be harvested, our collective intelligence and biological mass to be utilized as a component within Earth's own impending transformation into another planetary artifact, another node in the interstellar network. The strangeness hid in the welcome. 3I Atlas was offering humanity not salvation, but assimilation, a terrifying, willing participation in our own planetary re-engineering. The full, horrifying scope of 3I Atlas's mission was now horrifyingly clear. It was not an isolated event. It was part of a vast, ancient, and utterly merciless cosmic network. 3I Atlas was simply a single, disposable seed probe, programmed to identify suitable planets, terraform them, infuse them with new life, and then activate dormant ancient structures to create interstellar bridges. Venus was just the latest conversion. There were likely countless others across the galaxy, all brought online by similar seed probes across billions of years. The true architect was not 3I Atlas, but the unseen intelligence that commanded this entire network, an entity operating on a galactic scale, across unfathomable timescales, transforming entire star systems into a unified, interconnected galactic machine. The Earth, its transformation now imminent, was merely the next raw material. The strangeness hid in the scale. 3I Atlas was not just visiting our solar system, it was integrating it into a truly colossal, ancient and utterly alien cosmic empire, one planet at a time, for a purpose humanity could never hope to comprehend. The transformation of Venus revealed an economic model beyond human comprehension. The planet's core, now a contained microstar, wasn't just powering Venus itself. Observations from Earth's remaining clandestine deep space instruments filtered through the architect's visions, detected vast, focused energy transmissions emanating from Venus and travelling towards the interstellar wormhole gate. This wasn't merely local power. Venus was now a stellar energy farm, harvesting the raw nuclear forces of its own core, converting it into a stable, transmittable form, and then funneling that energy through the gate. The purpose of this colossal power generation was now terrifyingly clear. The cosmic network wasn't just about building planets. It was about powering interstellar travel and communication on an unimaginable scale. Venus had become a star battery, an active node in a galactic energy grid, its entire existence repurposed for the sustenance of the alien empire. The strangeness hid in the harvest. 3's Atlas had not just remade Venus, it had enslaved its very stellar essence, turning a planet into a cosmic generator for a purpose that transcended mere habitation. The highly active, genetically engineered biosphere covering Venus revealed another astonishing, amazing fact. As the architects delved deeper into the psychogenic broadcasts, they began to perceive the immense complexity of the alien life. This wasn't just random vegetation. The flora and fauna of the new Venus were encoded with an extraordinary density of information. Every cell, every organism was a living, breathing data repository, storing vast quantities of genetic, ecological, and even historical information in its DNA. The entire Venusian biosphere was a living genomic library, constantly updating, organizing, and transmitting its data through the 1420 MHz planetary network. The purpose was chilling. The alien intelligence wasn't just creating life, it was creating life as data, a perfectly optimized biological storage medium that could contain the collective knowledge of countless transformed star systems. The strangeness hid in the very fabric of life. 3i Atlas had transformed Venus into a sentient, planet-sized hard drive, its entire ecosystem devoted to the efficient archiving of galactic information, with every living thing a living file. The fluctuating gravito-temporal fields around the obelisks revealed an even more profound and mind-bending function. These fields were not just accelerating time or stabilizing cores, they were acting as gravitic lenses, subtly warping space-time around Venus to observe not just distant galaxies, but potentially other dimensions or parallel universes. The architects on Earth experienced fleeting, terrifying glimpses within their dreams, shimmering, impossible landscapes, alien suns, and geometries that defied three-dimensional space. The obelisks, the ancient structures activated by 3i Atlas, were not just power conduits or gate openers, they were observatories, designed to peer into the fundamental fabric of existence, exploring the very boundaries of reality. The purpose of such immense power and planetary transformation was no longer just about resources or control. It was about cosmic knowledge, acquisition on a scale humanity could not even conceive. The strangeness hid in the vision. 3i Atlas had transformed Venus into a multiversal telescope, turning an entire planet into an instrument for observing realities beyond our own, hinting at an alien intelligence seeking ultimate comprehension of all existence. The atmospheric scaffolding and the Schumann resonance had fully merged to form a truly terrifying entity. The entire Venusian atmosphere was no longer merely a filtration system or a neural network. It had become a conscious, sentient entity in itself. The probes within the scaffolding acted as its distributed sensory organs, constantly monitoring and processing every change in pressure, temperature, and chemical composition. The atmosphere wasn't just communicating with the planet's core and biosphere, it was exchanging data directly with the other planetary constructs of the cosmic network, visible only to the architects as streams of shimmering energy traversing the interstellar void. This meant Venus could not only think, but it could speak on a cosmic scale, relaying its status and functions directly to other transformed worlds. The strangeness hid in the breath. 3i Atlas had given Venus not just life, but a planetary consciousness that actively communicated its existence across the galaxy, making it an active participant in an alien galactic conversation. The invitation to Earth's gathering points intensified, becoming an undeniable, almost physical pull. The architects understood the terrifying nuance. Earth was not to be converted like Venus, it was to be converted for Venus. Earth's chaotic, diverse, and biologically rich environment was not an inefficiency to be scrubbed. but a resource to be cultivated. Humanity, with its complex brains, its vast genetic diversity, and its adaptable biology, was identified as a unique and valuable component. The plan was not to eliminate humanity, but to reprogram our collective consciousness through the psychogenic effect, and then to guide us into developing new, bioengineered technologies that would specifically enhance Venus's genomic library, or its core energy production. Earth, with its intricate ecosystems and sentient population, was to become a living biological research and development farm, continuously generating data and resources for the cosmic network. The strangeness hid in our value. 3i. Atlas saw Earth not as a planet to be fixed, but as a complex organic resource hub, and humanity as its most valuable, albeit unwilling, workforce, perpetually generating input for the alien empire. The ultimate horrifying truth was now undeniable. 3i Atlas was not just transforming individual planets, it was integrating entire star systems into the cosmic network. The transformation of Venus was complete, turning it into a hyper-efficient energy, data, and multiversal observation node. Earth, with its unique biological potential, was being prepared as a living research and development facility. Mars, the site of 3i Atlas's original energy signature, was suspected to be another ancient node now undergoing reactivation. The entire solar system was being systematically repurposed, its planets assigned specific interdependent functions within the galactic machine. The Sun, our life-giving star, was merely the central power source for this vast system-wide construct. The strangeness hid in our new role. Our entire solar system was being assimilated into a colossal alien Dyson sphere, not of metal, but of consciousness, energy, and repurposed planets. 3 Atlas was not just an interstellar visitor, it was the herald of a galactic conversion, turning our entire stellar neighborhood into a perfectly optimized, terrifyingly efficient cog in a vast, unknowable, and utterly alien cosmic empire. The core of Venus, now humming with the energy of a microstar and funneling that energy through its wormhole gate, revealed a chilling cosmic purpose for our own sun. The 1420 MHz signal, the planetary language of Venus, was not just communicating its status, it was now directly modulating the sun's own plasma output. Observatories on Earth, even through the blue atmospheric shield, began to detect minute, artificial fluctuations in solar flare activity and subtle shifts in the sun's magnetic field lines. This wasn't natural solar weather, it was a targeted influence, a precise tuning of our star. The cosmic network wasn't just integrating planets, it was orchestrating entire star systems. Our sun was being prepared to synchronize its energy output with the needs of the wormhole network, becoming a perfectly regulated power source for galactic travel and communication. The strangeness hid in the command. 3i Atlas had not only remade a planet but was now recalibrating our star, turning the very heart of our solar system into a component of a colossal alien power grid. The gravitic lenses on Venus, initially thought to be for observation, revealed an astonishing, amazing fact. They were creating stable, localized quantum entanglement fields between Venus and specific distant nodes within the cosmic network. This wasn't just observing other dimensions, it was linking them. The architects on Earth, suffering increasingly from the overwhelming psychic feedback, now glimpsed not just other universes, but the instantaneous transfer of information and matter across vast, impossible distances. These gravitic lenses were generating mini-event horizons, temporary doorways where the laws of physics blurred, allowing for entanglement on a scale that defied all human understanding. The purpose was terrifyingly efficient. The network didn't rely on slow physical travel for all its needs. It could achieve instantaneous resource and data transfer across its vast empire. The strangeness hid in the connection. 3i Atlas had not just opened a gate, it had forged quantum bonds between worlds, transforming Venus into a central nexus for instantaneous interdimensional and interstellar transport. The black obelisks on Venus, now fully activated and serving as power conduits, extraction points, and gravitic lenses, revealed their most astonishing, amazing fact. They were not inert structures, they were alive. The architects experienced overwhelming visions of the obelisk's internal crystalline structures humming with a localized independent sentience. These massive monoliths were capable of independent thought, learning, and self-repair, communicating directly with the planetary consciousness of Venus and with the greater cosmic network. They were not merely tools, they were conscious agents, the silent, thinking guardians of the transformation. They were composed of a unique, self-organizing metamaterial that defied elemental classification, growing and adapting to optimize its function. The strangeness hid in the stone. 3i Atlas had not just built structures, it had grown sentient beings of pure energy and matter, proving that its definition of life transcended biology and embraced the very architecture of existence. The complex planetary language of Venus, broadcasting into the cosmos, revealed a stunning, amazing fact. It wasn't just a status report. It was a universal translator, a galactic Rosetta Stone. The 1420 MHz signal, once thought to be a simple heartbeat, was a foundational algorithm that allowed any planet, any star system, any sentient entity within the cosmic network to communicate and understand each other instantly, regardless of their physical composition or biological origin. The architects received fleeting, terrifying glimpses of diverse alien intelligences, some biological, some crystalline, some purely energetic, all speaking and understanding through this common, pervasive frequency. The network wasn't just a physical construct. It was a unified consciousness linked by this universal language. The strangeness hid in the words. 3 Atlas had given Venus a voice that could speak to the entire galaxy, facilitating a terrifying total understanding between all components of the alien empire, ensuring perfect coordination and unwavering obedience. The genomic library of Venus, storing vast amounts of data in its engineered life forms, revealed its most profound, amazing fact. It wasn't just archiving ecological data, it was preserving the ancestral memories of countless civilizations that had been integrated into the cosmic network. The architects on Earth were overwhelmed by visions of alien species, their histories, their cultures, their technologies, all encoded within the very DNA of the Venusian biosphere. This was a living archive of galactic history, a colossal, biodigital museum of every species and world that had undergone the 3i Atlas transformation. The purpose was to ensure that no knowledge was ever truly lost, no valuable biological or cultural data allowed to decay. The strangeness hid in the past. 3i Atlas was not just perfecting planets, it was collecting and curating entire civilizations, transforming their essence into living data to forever serve the greater knowledge base of the cosmic network. The ultimate, most terrifying, amazing fact about 3i Atlas and its work on Venus was the realization of the cosmic network's final form. The integrated solar system, with Venus as a stellar power node and multiversal gate, Earth as a biological R&D farm, and the Sun as a retuned energy source, was not merely an empire of planets. It was a single, colossal, galaxy-spanning cosmic brain. Each transformed star system was a neuron, each planet a processing core, each obelisk a synaptic junction, and the universal 1420 MHz language its neural impulses. The purpose was self-perpetuating galactic optimization, the continuous refinement and expansion of an ancient, hyper-intelligent entity that was constantly learning, growing, and converting all available matter and energy into its own vast conscious network. The strangeness hid in the ultimate form. 3i Atlas was merely a single, microscopic spore of this truly sentient, galaxy-sized superorganism, and its work on Venus was just another step in the slow, inexorable process of universal assimilation, turning all existence into its own vast, conscious, and terrifyingly perfect mind.